welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. Again, not in the afternoon. It's not in the afternoon anymore. I should rename it. But anyways, today we're going to be drawing Thor. We're going to be redesigning Thor as well, and we're also going to be talking about complicated lighting and lighting, just in general, and all that effectsy kind of stuff. Just you know what I mean. Now, so we are gonna start our bits. So, naturally we already did our base sketch and all that stuff, but I've kind of left it a little less detailed than I might normally do. I haven't put in any like actual armor detailing or anything like that, mainly because whenever I drew this up I didn't actually know what I was gonna do with it. The only thing which I really knew about was I was gonna do the helmet, because I'm not a coward. And yeah, so his cape is going to lift a little bit over his shoulder like that, and then tuck around his back, and then it's also going to flap out around here on both sides. His hammer is quite long, well the staff is at least, or the handle of it is, because the idea is that he'd be able to hold it with two hands if need be, because I feel like the normal Mjolnir hammer is a little small for that kind of purpose. For to be able to hold it with two hands, which I always like whenever that type of thing is in, know that he holds it with two hands, because it gives it a little bit of extra oomph. Or the idea of him holding a hammer with a really long handle, and he's only swinging it around with one hand, makes it seem a lot heavier as well. That's a little thing. But yeah, these wings also always need to be giant. It's just how it is. But yeah, we'll see what I can figure out. I want to maintain a lot of the musculature, because Thor is obviously a very muscular character. But I kind of want to, yeah, I don't want to lose all that much of it on the armoring. So we'll see what I think of whenever I'm actually in there. I should say some of the stuff with his eyebrows here doesn't really make any difference, because a lot of this stuff is going to be covered up with the lightning. And yeah, that's why I'm not going to be giving him like pupils or anything like that. You won't be able to see it because his eyes are going to be quite over. They're going to have the lightning effect on them, as will a lot of him. So it's a case where I'm trying to kind of weigh up what I really need to detail here, because a lot of it is going to get covered up. And rather than wasting my own time by putting far too much detail in, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see what I end up leaving on the cutting room floor, so to speak. I'm trying to be conscious that these don't look too much like nipples, which is a very easy thing that I feel like is going to happen. A very easy mistake to make is to make these look too much like nipples. I'm going to try and emphasize certain things here, which I'm really failing to do. Back to the circles. So, you know, I wanted to mention this. I feel like now would be a good time to talk about it, but I feel like it's very difficult to redesign a Marvel character who's already been in the MCU. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, they have a very good design team. They have a very good VizDev team that they used for those films. And realistically, yeah, just for those films in general, they have quite a good design team. So oftentimes, the MCU designs are pretty decent versions of the designs, if maybe a little colorless sometimes. But yeah, there's the kind of issue of a lot of the designs that they use for the films, they modernize them quite well. So whenever you're trying to modernize something that's already kind of modern, you're kind of struggling a little bit. And it depends really with what you want to do with a lot of these characters. Like, say, it's pretty difficult, I would say, to redesign a character like Iron Man or Thor, because oftentimes you're just kind of gonna reach the same conclusions that they did, which is add more lines. Because, I mean, with Iron Man in particular, it's a case of where Iron Man's designs for the last like 20 years have been getting more complex each time anyways, so that's the kind of natural trajectory that you would follow to redesign him. But there is the issue there of, well, it doesn't feel very original to just add more lines to Iron Man, so therefore the more appropriate redesign there will be to simplify his look. But that might not really be jiving with what you want to do with the character or any of this type of stuff. So this is the thing, it's a kind of a instance by instance type of thing, I guess. Because yeah, with Thor, I think it can be difficult to redesign Thor, because there's a lot of stuff with Thor which, I don't know, it's tricky. Like, I mean, I feel like the best way to redesign Thor is just to throw the helmet on him, because they don't really use the helmet anymore. So already you're just going to end up with something that looks very different to what they have in the films, because he doesn't really wear a helmet in the films. He sometimes wears one. In a lot of the trailers, they often throw a helmet on him, just to kind of get those people who still like the helmet to go, oh, he's wearing the helmet now. That's about it, really. But yeah, when it comes to redesigning Thor, there's a lot of stuff which you can't really change, and this is the type of thing which I've talked about before, of where when you're redesigning a character, you always want to basically look at the stuff you can change and what you can't change. So for example, Thor can have a helmet, doesn't always have to. Thor generally has long hair and a beard. You can get rid of the beard sometimes, but you can't get rid of the beard and the long hair. It can only be one or the other. He has to be hyper jacked. If Thor is not ripped, what's going on? Thor has a hammer or some sort of bludgeoning weapon generally. It can be big or small. Thor generally has a red cape. But this is the thing, you can probably think of at least one instance at a time of where they've changed one or multiple of those things to redesign the character. If you look at something like Unworthy Thor, I don't even think he has like a robe over his armor or something like that, and that's red. But he has an axe, and he's got short hair, but he's still got a beard. And a lot of this stuff, he doesn't have, I don't believe he has like this kind of circles design on him. I have no idea where that comes from, by the way. It's just kind of always been a part of his design for some reason, is these weird circles. I'm not quite sure why that is, because I don't know if that would have ever been in any kind of like Norse armor, anything like that, any kind of Viking armor. I don't know if they would have ever used that type of, this kind of look to them. But yeah, it can be tricky to redesign a lot of these characters, is the point I'm making. Jesus. Oh, this is not easy. But I think we're coming to something interesting, at least with the base design. And yeah, normally I wouldn't do all the design on the fly like this, but well, this is just how it shook out, I guess. Yeah, I wouldn't normally do it this way. I'd normally have an idea of the design beforehand, but in this instance I decided, oh, what the hell, oh, let's do it now. We'll do it live, so to speak. But yeah, that's obviously a lot trickier than just knowing what you're gonna do beforehand. That's a little much. Yeah, I'm trying to evoke bits of the classic design here, because in the classic design I seem to remember having these like really pointy boots. Like this. Something like that anyways. I'm trying to do that without going too overboard on it and making it look too 90s. Because yeah, pointy boots and that type of thing. Peak 90s styling. Yeah. So we get the design done. And yeah, I feel like you can probably see what I was going for with a lot of this, of where inadvertently it does look like MCU in a sense, of where there's a lot of the kind of little bits like this which are kind of, again, in those films and here it's supposed to look less techy and more kind of runic, but it does look quite techy, just by nature of it, which I don't think there's much avoiding. But yeah, again, like I tried to put like interesting little shapes which are kind of like the helmet, because the helmet has a lot of these wing shapes on it. Like even here, this is kind of the same design sense as the wings, or like these curves here. All that stuff conforms around here as well. It's the same type of thing on the body piece, and this kind of stops here rather than going down into the longer skirt piece that you might see in the films, because that's more like the classic design. The classic design doesn't have that, if I remember correctly, and he's got like the weird blue leggings. And here again, much like the films and the comics even, his leg pieces are a little bit looser, and then these big boots are a bit thicker, and yet has the sharp kind of slightly outward divoting knee pieces, which then conform into the rest of the boot. Now, I think I'm probably going to colour him to be a little bit more like the classic design, less so than the films, because the films are very black. His design is very black. I think I'm going to colour him to look more like the classic design, or there would still be black in there, but it's not the central colour like it would be otherwise. But yeah, like a lot of simple stuff like that I've just done there. Again, it does look still quite MCU. It still looks very kind of movie-ish, but it looks different enough. I don't think it looks like any one design in particular from the films. So yeah, there's that at least. I'm gonna see if I can find some good reference just to remind myself in a little bit of what I should be coloring it with. Okay, I think I have an idea of what I'm going to do for him color-wise. But alright, without further ado, we'll get into the dots. Okay, well, I got those dots done, which took a lot longer than I was expecting. We can get onto the colour. I have an idea of what I want to do here. So, I don't think the black is going to be fully black. I think it's going to be a slightly bluer black. And then I'm actually going to have a real blue as well, which I'm going to be using in parts. But yeah, there's going to be the blue or black, and then there's going to be an actual blue, silver, red, all this stuff, and then there's going to be a gold rather than a yellow, because I feel like the yellow will look a bit weird. But yeah, that's the kind of idea that I'm going for, at least. But yeah, there's something else I was going to say there, but I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me in a little bit. I decided to insert a little bit more blue into the design. I thought it might make it look a little bit more interesting. Yes, there's a lot of black still left to do. Now the question is, what should I do next? I think maybe the yellow might be a good choice for next. Or the gold, I mean. Because there realistically isn't that much of the gold. There's a lot of bloody colours in. There is a lot of colours in Thor's design. For some reason, there are quite a few. For just some reason, there's quite a few of them. You know, I feel like this is as good a time as any to talk about this. Yeah, I was gonna hold off on it for a little while, but yeah, you know what, I think this is probably the best time to talk about this. You can color a superhero, or you can design a superhero and all this stuff in a modern sense, with modern sensibilities, without making them drab as hell looking. Like, you can keep in all these blues and golds, and I'm going to be putting in the red soon enough, but I'll probably put in the black first, because that'll actually probably be easier to put in. Or no, maybe not. No, yeah, maybe I'll do the red first. But yeah, like, you can do all this stuff without just completely desaturating them. Like, I mean, if you look at Thor in most of the films, his design is mostly black. I mean, the red of his cape is very, very red, which is good. But it's a case of where there's very little other color in his design, really. His design is quite drab looking. And it feels very desaturated, which is a bit of a shame, because, like, these are superheroes. They should be quite colorful. They're big, bright heroes. Like, they should have color. I don't know. I feel like this is the type of thing which is just a bit insane to me. The idea of just sucking all the color out of the superhero films, or not even just sucking all the color out of films, but even in comics, I find a lot of more modern designs tend to go with over big, bright electric reds. They tend to go for burgundy or stuff like that. You know what I mean? Of where it's kind of, it's not quite as bright and bold as I might like, at least. I know that type of design sense is for a lot of people, but it just kind of bothers me a little bit, because yeah, I feel like they're superheroes. Like, even any of the times that I draw superhero characters, I always make them a lot more colorful than they usually are, or at least I try to. Sometimes with these things I tend to maybe color them in a little bit duller, and then use the gradient maps to pull a little bit more of the color out, but I don't know. Now, this is also red, so I'll do that here now as well. And this is the thing, like, I mean, color palette wise, I'm following the classic design, but I'm kind of iterating a little bit. Like, he's still got all this, I mean, he's got more blue than he normally would. But all the red is still there, all this stuff, it's all still there. And like, yeah, this is the thing, it's... I don't know, it just kind of bothers me whenever they decide, you know what, we don't like color. We want to make these things look as drab as humanly possible. Like, I mean, look at even the lighting in the MCU movies. It's all so kind of flat and overcast at all times of the day. There's no like sunset scenes or anything like that. I mean, there probably is, it's just I can't think of them right now, but like, you know what I mean, of where it's predominantly very neutral lighting. Like, even in scenes which should have more dynamic lighting, it feels very kind of neutral and dull and all this stuff. I don't know. Again, I feel like this type of stuff is for a lot of people, but I feel like it would be a little bit more interesting if they went for more kind of vivid color palettes and things like that, because I feel like electric, bright, bold colors bring people in. I mean, the Marvel films are much better than the DC films. The DC films are predominantly blue or black, which is not, you know, it's not really what a superhero film should look like. I think, at least. I think there should be color in superhero films. Like, I don't know. I feel like in this instance I'm either preaching to the choir here, or either that, or I'm ranting on to people who don't really care. It's only ever one or the other in this type of instance. Now, I should probably do the silver, because there's actually going to be a startlingly low amount of that I actually have to colour in, because what I'm going to do later on is that I'm just going to colour that the same as the lightning. So I'm just going to basically do that as a white, more or less, later on. This is the thing, I may as well just do the silver now, because there'll actually be very little of it. Or actually no, I'll do the brown first, because there'll be a very tiny amount of that on the handle here. So gotta get that colour. Okay, now I think it is time for black. That'll be the last one, and then it'll be shading, and then we've got to do all our lighting stuff, which will be difficult. That might take a little while, that stuff, because I'm going to need to be very careful about how I do that, because what I'm going to do is, you know, I'll wait until I actually get to that point to explain it. I'll wait. I'll hold off. Now, that's all our colours done. At least minus the bits that will have white in them. But yeah, now that I look at it from afar, it does look a little bit like Thor's design in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. A little bit. I don't actually think it looks that much like it. It's just kind of, I think, the head area of where the beard and the helmet. It's not all that often you get both. You usually get one or the other whenever it comes to that. It's not, yeah, as I say, it's not often you get the helmet and the beard. So that's why I'm thinking of it, because they use the helmet and the beard. So it kind of sticks out in my mind. But yeah, time to shade. Now, I think maybe I should put in my background first, because my background is probably going to be quite dark. So it might just behoove me to do that now. Um, okay, alright, so we've done enough of that. Now we gotta do the lighter parts. So, let's get back to it. Okay, so we've got that done now, which means we can get on to our lighting. And so, since that's basically the last thing we have to do, it might be a bit tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'll have it be like a blue, ever so slightly. It'd be basically white, what I'm doing here. So it'd be, yeah, like this kind of a blue maybe, where it's very, very pale, to the point where it's basically white. So we're going to want to do this above our detail, so that the glow from it looks real. It's going over the lines, all that type of stuff. That's what we want. So I'll just call it lightning. Now, there's some of this which might be difficult, because yeah, some of it I don't want it to go over, but some of it I do, obviously. So what I'll do is I'll do the eyes as a separate type of lightning, and then I'll just color in the rest under the detail as maybe lightning 2 or something like that. So yeah, this is going to be very, very, very precise that I have to be right here, so they don't go over too much. You want to fill it in, and then we're going to be applying glow and all this stuff and blur and everything to it to make it look a lot more kind of luminescent. I don't think I've ever drawn lightning or anything like that here before, so this is kind of a thing that I don't normally do it all that often. But yeah, so lightning in particular, like smaller bits of lightning like this, and it crackles off, it splits and stuff like that. And so that's the kind of thing here that we're doing, of where it's and this, again, this looks kind of rough right now, but it'll look a lot better as we kind of add effects and stuff like that. And so yeah, you know, initially part of the plan for this was to have the lightning provide lighting for the piece as well. That's what I have down in my notes, because I do make a minor little bit of a note before I do these. It's very short, my notes that I usually make, but yeah, it was yeah, I normally make very small notes and that type of thing for these before I do them. And yeah, I was thinking like, oh well, I can make the lightning provide the lighting for the character as well. That's not too bad. That would take far too much effort. That would take way longer than I'm willing to put in to this. I mean, these already take like 3 hours a pop. We're already 3 hours in and not even done yet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this another glow, which will be something like this. We're going to have it be a very kind of pale blue. much brighter than the color we're actually using. We don't want it to be a screen tone, we want it to be normal tone so that we get an active like border around it like this. We want it to spread out a little bit, and we want it to basically go out like that. We don't want it to spread out too much, we still want a decent thickness on this. Maybe you want to rein it in a little bit so that these sparkles here look pretty intense from a distance. So this is the thing, we want to be kind of diligent about that, so we're going to go back in and have a look here at what we can do to kind of rein it in a little bit. So, I mean, still whenever it's zoomed out it's pretty intense, but whenever you zoom in it's alright. It won't kind of be too bad. I mean, once we put on the texture, it'll kind of blend it a little bit more into the background, so that should look a little better once we're done there. And I also need to put an inner glow on it. Or should I? Should I put an inner glow on it at all? I don't even know if I really need to. Let's have a look at... let's just do it. Have a look at it. See what that kind of does for us. See if that does anything for us. If it strikes our fancy at all. Because we're only going to be doing it for this lightning. We're only going to be doing the screen tone for that. Now, yeah. Yeah, that looks fine. Because yeah, we're going to be doing lightning 2 after this. But yeah, so now we're going to do, yeah, the next one. So what do we want to call that? Glow maybe. Let's call that glowing metal. Glowing metal is what we'll call that. And so this will go under the lines, but we still need to be careful because it will go over our colors if we're not careful here. Which we don't want. We don't want to have this go over our colors. We'll go over our dots as well, but that's fine. We don't want any kind of shading to be applied to this. Now, this may take a minute, so I'll probably speed this up. One might question why I even bothered to shade the hammer. I'm doing the same thing right now. Okay, so now this is the same process. All we got to do here is do this as we did before. Do an outer glow, and this will probably need an inner glow as well, I would wager. So do this, and then we're gonna want to go for, I don't know, again probably about the same color roughly. A very, very kind of bright color like this as our glow. And this we'll want as something like this. And then maybe a bit of an inner glow, something maybe milder than our yeah, we're going to want a milder inner glow than our outer glow. That's just kind of, that just makes sense, I suppose. So we're really going to want to put maybe a tiny little bit of this in there. We're going to want it to be spread out quite a bit. So yeah, you get that kind of look to it. However, it looks like it's glowing. Now we're going to want to add more lightning. So the question is, should we add that on our lightning layer, or should we add that on a different layer? I think I'll add it on the same layer, just to avoid any confusion. Just to make my life a little easier. And we've already got the glow and everything done, so that's all good. Okay. For anyone who's curious, you can use this exact same type of effect on, if you were to draw Psylocke or something like that, and you just have that kind of like glowing pink thing that she has around her face sometimes. You could kind of use this same effect for that and just kind of fill it in that way. Again, there's certain points here where I don't want to be kind of going too crazy with the lightning because I don't want it to overlap with other stuff and just kind of then it gets visually noisy and it becomes hard to kind of tell what's going on, which isn't what you want. You want very, even though it's kind of lightning, which is a natural thing, which means it's very unpredictable by nature, you don't want it to look confusing. You want to be able to tell what's going on whenever you're looking at it. Now, from a distance, this looks very messy, but whenever you zoom in a little bit, it looks a lot clearer. And again, this is just the kind of the nature of it, because lightning is a natural thing. It's gonna look a little messy, but I try to avoid as much overlap as possible. Like whenever it's in full zoomed in resolution, or at least the size in which I drew it, it's not quite as kind of messy looking. It looks a little clearer whenever, because the lines themselves are actually quite thick, or quite thin I mean. So whenever you zoom out, it's kind of blurring it a lot more, which isn't obviously what you want. You want it to sit in the way it was drawn. So whenever I put the texture and all that stuff on there, it shouldn't look quite that messy. So now I'm going to throw on my signature. I don't think we need to do a light line really. I don't feel the need to do a light line here. I don't feel the need to do it, so I'm not going to do it. I'm feeling lazy. Feeling lazy. I don't want to have to do a light line. I've already done the whole thing at this point. I don't think the light line's going to make anything easier or clearer to see. He doesn't blend into the background at all, so it's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't think he needs a light line. I do need to do a gradient map though. So, throw in our adjustment layer. Just grab an old gradient map. So, that's our darkest. You know what, I think I'll go for like something kind of purpley. This should have an interesting look to it. We'll see. Okay, doesn't look bad. Again, it's a bit odd looking, I think, but it doesn't look bad at all, I don't think. So we'll throw it down to 60%, and then we'll... It makes it a little darker, which I wouldn't initially be into, but it makes the overall thing darker and then the lightning brighter, which is good. That was kind of what I was hoping for. A little bit. I didn't really know what it was going to do, to be honest, but that was kind of what I was hoping for. Was that, yeah, the lightning would look brighter, because again, we want it to look bright. It's lightning. Okay, so now I need to grab the texture as well. I need to grab my texture, which I yet again did not prepare beforehand. I have a bad habit of doing that, of just getting in, doing the drawing, and then thinking to myself, oh yeah, I need to grab the texture. Now. Let's have a little zoom and see how this disperses our lightning. I think it does quite well. So yeah, it's blending the lightning a little bit more than, yeah, about as much as I wanted it to. I guess if we wanted more blending, we could turn up the opacity, or if we wanted less, you could turn it down, all that type of stuff, because it doesn't blend naturally, so that's the thing. Just if you wanted it to kind of blend more or less, you could kind of fiddle with the texture opacity a little bit, but I have it turned reasonably low, because yeah, you can see very clearly on the background, it changes how the background looks. I don't really care about that. It's not really important how the background looks to me. But yeah. I think that is it. I think we're done. 3 hours and 20 minutes of a recording. Quite a long one. quite long, a lot longer than I was expecting, to be honest. I kind of half expected this recording to be reasonably short. They never are. I don't know why I would have thought otherwise. I honestly don't know what I was thinking. They're never quick. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. I'm quite happy with it. So, what have we discussed? We talked about the lightning stuff and a lot of effects and things like that. We talked a lot. I had a big long rant about color. And those are the major things, really. I didn't really talk all that much about the redesign. I talked a little bit about kind of redesign. A little bit, just kind of about how they modernize things and stuff like that, how they modernize designs and take classic designs, and how oftentimes whenever you're redesigning a character which has already been redesigned quite a bit, it can be tricky to think of a decent way to redesign them. But here I kind of settled on something that was more like the classic Thor, but which had a lot of the modern DNA in there still, where it still had a lot of the kind of the modern kind of quirks, I guess. I guess you could say that. But yeah, I think that's it. If you like the video, you can do what you'd normally do, whether that be liking the video, whether that be ringing the bell or whatever that does, and subscribing and all that stuff. But yeah, subscribe if you like. I said all the stuff. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one if you decide to watch the next one. I guess I'll leave you and I'll say bye bye. Bye bye.